Hey guys, welcome back to the BRZ. In today's video, we're going to be talking about rust proofing. A pretty commonly asked question that I get on the channel is, what do I use to keep my cars rust free in the winter? Because I drive this thing year round through the salt, through the snow. So let's delve in. Let's talk about rust proofing in this video, what I've used, some of my experiences. I'll share some answers with you guys, and we'll just kind of take you through the process of what I do with my vehicles every winter. So I've been a customer of Crown Rust Control since about 2017, back when I bought my Lexus GX 460. I needed a solution to keep that rust free because it's a body-on-frame SUV, steel chassis. They're susceptible to rust, and it was already a little bit rusty, but I wanted to kind of keep it at its good point. I was finding a lot of vehicles here in Southeast Michigan, FJs, 4Runners, GXs, and they were just a mess underneath. The rust was really, really bad. I found a relatively clean one, so I wanted to maintain it. Basically, Crown has locations all over the United States, mostly in the Salt Belt. They're a Canadian-based company, so if the Canadians are using it, it's probably pretty good stuff. It's $140 for a car, $150 I think for a mid-size SUV, and then $160 for a full-size truck or SUV. So pretty affordable. It's an annual thing. You should do it about once a year. It's a fine oil-based coating that carries a rust inhibitor. It's non-toxic, environmentally friendly. There are a lot of other rust protection products out there besides Crown. There are some waxed-based films, some thicker coatings that can actually cause some more issues than they prevent because moisture gets under them and causes rust that you can't really see before it's too late. That can become a major issue. The thing I like about Crown is the application process is so thorough that it pretty much just gets everywhere that moisture gets. And it creates a bond with the metal and basically just keeps water away from the metal on your chassis, your suspension components, every place on the car that is susceptible to rust. And the areas of a vehicle that rust first are the seam welds, the spot welds, the pieces deep within the frame, and they start there and then it just kind of grows from that point. And Crown is able to get into those really tight, obscure areas inside the body and prevent rust before it starts. Oil and water don't mix. Condensation causes a lot of rust. Salt spray causes a lot of rust on the bottom of the vehicle. So the oil spray makes a bond with the metal and basically just keeps any moisture away from that metal in contact. It's a pretty cool product. I've had really good luck with it the last 5 years or so with all of my vehicles. I've had my 4Runner spray, my old BRZ, my wife's Mazda CX-30, our Highlander, my dad's FJ, and of course my Lexus GX 460, all have been taken to Crown Rust Control. So I figured let's just walk you through the process a little bit today. I just took this to be coated at the Croswell location here in Southeast Michigan. So the first thing they do, they're going to put your car up on a lift and they will spray all of your rubber seals with a very strong silicone coating that's developed by Crown to keep the oil off your door seals. So then the next part, this is a little bit painful to watch. Chances are you're not watching this because you're sitting in the waiting room, but it's a very necessary part of the process in my opinion. So they drill access holes into your rocker panels and areas where they're going to insert a very long rod that has a spray nozzle at the end, and they're going to spray Crown all inside your chassis. You don't have to worry about electrical connections. This is all safe for pretty much all automotive components. So once they spray everything inside, a little bit of excess product will drip out. That creates a little bit of a self-healing process, but also it just keeps repelling that water. They'll go into the trunk, spray all up in here. If there are already access holes, they'll use those. They'll insert rods here, spray this way, in the hood, pretty much every area that is susceptible to rust. And then they'll put the car up on the lift and spray the whole underbody. This BRZ has a lot of plastic panels underneath for aerodynamics and just general protection, so that they make sure that those panels get coated. And also they'll spray the suspension components, keep staying away from the braking system. A little bit of Crown spray will get on the exhaust. That'll burn off after a few days, not a really big deal. Overall, it's an incredibly thorough process. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes. And like I said earlier, reasonably affordable. Makes a little bit of a mess for a few days afterwards. Your car will drip for about 48 hours. If you have an asphalt driveway, kind of like the parking lot that we're on right now, the oil will dissolve and just kind of vanish. If you have a concrete driveway, you might have to use a product. Crown has this like a soapy product that you could just spray on your driveway and that'll clean it all off. It really does a nice job of lubricating suspension components and chassis points and making the car very serviceable for the rest of its life. All of your ball joints, moving parts will continue to be lubricated, and it will increase their service life, which is actually pretty cool. One reason why ball joints fail is because they lose their lubrication. Boots tear, water, dirt, nastiness gets in there, and then it causes a failure. If I have a brand new car, I try to get that sprayed as quickly as I can, usually within the first year of ownership, just to maintain that completely rust-free nature on all the metal parts on the chassis. But I've also had a lot of used vehicles sprayed too, like my Lexus GX and my 4Runner, and it has maintained them at their state of how I pretty much bought them over multiple winters. And if you already have a vehicle that's a little bit rusty, you don't want it to get any worse, Crown can stop or slow down that process significantly and do a really nice job of keeping your vehicle serviceable and on the road. Once your whole vehicle's been coated, they'll wash it, they'll spray it with a specialized soap that will get rid of the crown that has gotten onto your paint, onto your windows. One really cool thing about the product is that it is also self-healing, just in the nature of it being an oil. So let's say you get some rock chips underneath, or some just really harsh spray from sand or dirt underneath their chassis or suspension components. The oil will kind of soak into the metal and spread, and if it gets chipped off, it'll kind of spread back and self-heal. So you're always going to have coverage for about a year on your car. Eventually the oil will kind of dry up a bit, and you'll notice that it's not as wet underneath the vehicle. That usually happens about a month or so later. And you'll notice that if you spray some water on the area that have been crowned, it'll kind of have almost like a waxy hydrophobic coating. That's that oil that is soaked into the metal and kind of bonded with it. It's a little bit messy if you're working on suspension components or you're replacing something under the car, but it's a heck of a lot easier than dealing with rust, and everything seems to come apart a lot easier on a vehicle that's been crowned. So are there any drawbacks, things I don't like about Crown? Well, the dripping is a little bit annoying for the first few days in your garage or driveway, but like I said earlier, it just kind of vanishes after a bit, or you can always just wash it off with the Crown soap. There is a little bit of a smell as everything kind of drips down your chassis onto your exhaust every now and then. So here and there, you'll just catch little scents of the product being burned off on your exhaust. Not a huge deal. The only other problem that I've heard of is that some people have experienced some swelling of the rubber seals on their cars, around headlamps or door seals, something like that. If the silicone is properly applied, that shouldn't be really much of an issue. Also, Crown will replace any seals that do swell. It's a pretty rare issue. Todd, the owner at the Croswell location, said that it happens most commonly on older American cars, like older Chevrolets or older Dodges, and he hasn't really seen it on much else. Honestly, it's not something I'd worry about too much. On the slim chance that it does happen, it's a heck of a lot easier to deal with than rust. All right, it's getting cold. Let's hop inside. We'll take this for a little drive, and I'll answer a few more questions that people seem to have. So a couple questions that I've had in the past and people have asked me is, can you crown your vehicle if there's already salt on it, or if it's wet and nasty out, you're taking your vehicle there in the middle of winter? The answer is yes. If it's raining and it's wet out, the water will just get pushed out by the oil spray on your car. If it's already really salty, Crown has I think it's called Salt Eliminator. It's a product that basically just gets rid of all the salt underneath your chassis, underneath your car. They'll spray it with that first, and then they'll apply the oil. Another question is, when is the best time to get your car coated? Ideally, the best time is probably late winter or early spring, when the first thaws start to happen, because that's when the most corrosion occurs. But I usually end up getting my vehicles coated at the beginning of winter. Pretty much any time of year is a good time of year to get your vehicle coated. It doesn't really matter that much. You just kind of want to have something on there during those winter months. One note about washing your car in the winter. So do everything you want to the paint, to the exterior of your car. I tend to avoid as many undercarriage washes as I can. Maybe I'll do them a couple times a winter, but very often the high pressure spray or the soap or the chemicals that are used in undercarriage washes can dissolve a little bit of the crown. So I tend to only do a few of those throughout the winter. I'm not doing weekly undercarriage sprays like I used to back when I didn't get my cars coated. One thing that I've found that's kind of cool is that after about a year or so of having the product on and driving around, getting grime, road, dirt, dust all over the underside of your car, it'll kind of form this really nice protective barrier on all of your suspension components and underneath your chassis. And after a couple of years of that, you've got a pretty strong resistant barrier against salt underneath your car, just built up naturally. Now, you still want to get it sprayed pretty regularly just because of that rust inhibitor that's built into the product. But once you've done a couple initial sprays, it makes a big difference in keeping your car protected. All right, well, hopefully I answered a lot of the questions that you guys have had in this video. Overall, I would highly recommend Crown for anyone who lives in the Salt Belt. Whenever people ask me what I use for rust proofing, it's the top thing that I recommend. I feel like I could be a sales rep for them sometimes. Maybe I'll open up a location someday. But it's definitely a product that I'm passionate about, that I've used a lot, and that I would highly recommend to anyone who's looking to keep their car rust-free in the winter months. So anyway, guys, let me know if you have any more questions in the comments. I'll try to respond to as many as I can. That'll be it for this one. Thanks for watching. Hopefully we get some snow out here in Southeast Michigan so we can test out this new winter setup on the BRZ. We've got some wheels and tires coming in for the Civic Type R here soon too. I've got to take that into Crown also because I would definitely want to drive that in the winter months and I don't want it to rust. So yeah, we'll take it from there. All right, see you guys later. Take care.